Red, white, and blue campaign coverage now. And from Wisconsin, Congressman Paul Ryan's first days in the campaign trail to the race for the U.S. Senate being set. It's been a very busy week for us in politics, and here to break some of it down for us as November really is just on the horizon for us. We have political expert Lilly Goren from Carroll University with us. Lilly, good morning to you.
Thanks for having me today.
Let's start with the Paul Ryan pick for VP. It's been a week for him now on the campaign trail. How do you see him faring, or how has he fared in his first 7 days?
Well, I mean, I think he's done fairly well on the campaign trail. This is the first national campaign that Paul Ryan has now been running for a week. And he's a good campaigner. I mean, we saw that in Wisconsin, that he's a good campaigner. He's personable. He can connect with crowds, and that's one of the things that's been coming through in his campaign stops with the Romney ticket, sometimes with Romney and sometimes on his own. And so in that regard, I think, he's getting used to the national attention, getting used to the national stage, playing beyond the first district of Wisconsin, as he's been in Ohio and a couple other states this week, and sort of getting his feet wet in terms of what it means to run on a national ticket.
And it's going to be quite something for the Romney-Ryan ticket to carry Wisconsin, because a Republican presidential candidate has not won Wisconsin since Reagan.
That's true, although it was a very tight race for Gore and it was a very tight race for Kerry. Obama carried the state with greater numbers than either Gore or Kerry, and I think both of those races were really quite tight. So Wisconsin is, as they say in the vernacular, fairly purple. And I think given our recent history with the election of Scott Walker and then the recall of Scott Walker, that there's definitely, a sort of interest on both sides that unfortunately or fortunately it's a fairly polarized state in a lot of ways. But there's also now political infrastructure on both the Democratic and the Republican side, given the number of races that we've seen statewide in the last couple of years.
Let's talk about a possible link between that presidential race and our U.S. Senate race in Wisconsin. Do you think that the Romney-Ryan ticket is directly tied to Tommy Thompson's success, or could Thompson win the U.S. Senate race in Wisconsin even if Romney-Ryan do not carry the state?
Splitting tickets.
Right.
Something that Americans have been doing since the Reagan days. And I think that there may be something to that in Wisconsin with regard to people potentially voting for Tommy Thompson and voting for the Obama-Biden ticket. I don't know how likely it is for people to vote for the Romney-Ryan ticket and for Tammy Baldwin. But given that Tommy Thompson is such a known quantity in the state and people have a lot of warm memories of him as governor, that there may be some folks that split their ticket. It's not clear at this point, and it's hard to do some sort of polling on that also.
There's been much made this week about tax returns, both for Romney-Ryan and also for Tommy Thompson. Why is that something that is important to some voters?
I think voters want to know essentially who they're electing, and tax returns at least tell you as a voter potentially how much money a person has, how much they earned, where it may have come from, and that becomes the issue with regard to, quote, special interests. If you're lobbying, which is something that Thompson has done a bit of recently, or if you have, sort of investments in various areas, and a lot of times politicians have these blind trusts and they don't know who they're invested with. But I think that voters want to know, essentially, where you're earning your money. Do you have a job like I have, or do you have a job that potentially earns you a lot more money? And if so, where does that come from?
All right, Lilly Goren from Carroll University, thank you so much for
pleasure.
being here this morning. And I'm guessing we'll see quite a bit more of you here in the coming months leading up to the November election. Stick with today's TMJ4 all election season long for the most complete coverage, both on air and online at today'stmj4.com.